The storm outside didn't bother Vanessa. Not the thunder, not the sideways rain soaking her down to the bone. What terrified her was the thought of losing Zoey. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her eyes were red raw from crying, from pleading with banks, hospitals, strangers, anyone. She had tried everything. She had swallowed her pride more times in the past 2 days than in her entire life combined. And now she stood at the last place she thought she'd ever return to, her childhood home. A place full of chandeliers, expensive perfume, crystal glasses. A place that had never felt warm. Vanessa pushed through the heavy wooden doors. The blast of warmth hit her not comforting, but suffocating. The air inside was heavy with celebration. Soft jazz played, wine poured. Her brother Blake's engagement party looked like something from a luxury magazine spread. And here she was, drenched, shaking, barely holding herself upright. Her entrance was like a dropped glass. Every head turned. A room full of perfect people in tailored suits and designer dresses now stared at the soaking woman clutching a crumpled hospital form in one hand. Her mother, Monica, spotted her instantly. She excused herself from a circle of women laughing near the grand piano. She didn't run to her daughter. She didn't ask what was wrong. Instead, she approached with a tight smile that barely disguised her annoyance. "Vanessa, not now. We have guests." Her voice was a whisper, sharp and cold. Vanessa blinked back tears. "It's Zoey, Mom. She collapsed at school. She's in the ICU. It's serious." Monica's expression didn't change, but Vanessa saw it, the calculation behind her eyes, the discomfort, the irritation, the fear. Not for Zoey, but for how this might look. And then Gerald appeared, her father, silver-haired, still in his favorite navy blazer. He looked at Vanessa, then around the room, like he was measuring how much attention she was drawing. "Let's take this to the study," he said quietly. He didn't ask why she was crying. Vanessa didn't feel like a daughter in that moment. She felt like a problem to be handled. But she followed them, her shoes squeaking against the polished floors. Because this was the last door she could knock on, and Zoey didn't have time to wait. The study smelled like cigars and old books, familiar but never welcoming. Vanessa stood on the Persian rug like she had so many times as a child, nervous, out of place. Only now she wasn't asking to borrow the car. She was asking to save her daughter's life. The doctor says Zoey needs open-heart surgery within 48 hours. Without it, her voice broke, she might not make it. Monica sat down gracefully on the leather sofa, smoothing out her navy dress. Gerald remained standing, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Vanessa tried again. "The total cost is around $70,000. We've managed to pull together some, but we're still short. Please, I've never asked you for anything." Silence. Then Monica spoke, calm, cool, almost rehearsed. "Vanessa, you know we love Zoey, but Blake's wedding is in 3 months." Gerald added with a businesslike tone, "We've already committed $250,000. Venue catering, honeymoon, all non-refundable." Vanessa stared at them, stunned. "You're telling me you won't help because the wedding money is already spent?" Monica sighed like she was the one being inconvenienced. "It's not that simple, darling. We have responsibilities, reputations." Vanessa's knees buckled slightly. She held onto the armrest for balance. "This isn't about reputation. This is your granddaughter. She's dying." Gerald glanced at Monica. The way they used to when Vanessa misbehaved at family dinners, silently deciding the outcome before she could finish her sentence. Monica folded her hands. "You should have had insurance, Vanessa. We can't be expected to cover every poor decision you make." Every word felt like a slap. "You bought Blake a future," Vanessa whispered, "and left my daughter without one." Neither parent responded. The silence was worse than any answer. Vanessa took a step back, then another. "I see. Thank you for your time." She opened the door to leave, but someone was standing there. Blake, champagne glass in one hand, smirk on his face. Always stealing the spotlight, huh, sis? His fiancée Lauren hovered behind him, quiet and uncomfortable. Vanessa's voice cracked, no longer pleading. Get out of the way! But it was Gerald who cut in. Vanessa, don't make a scene. We've handled this privately. Let's be adults. And with that, it was over. The conversation. The last thread. The final illusion. Vanessa walked out soaked in something colder than rain. Disappointment, disgust, realization. Behind her, the music swelled. The party resumed. Vanessa didn't run. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. Not anymore. She walked through the foyer like a ghost, her heels echoing against polished marble, each step growing heavier, not from the rain soaking through her shoes, but from the weight of truth she could no longer ignore. Behind her, the laughter returned. Chandeliers sparkled, glasses clinked. Someone was singing off-key near the grand piano. Not a single person followed her out. She reached the front door and paused. For just a second, she turned to look over her shoulder at the place that once held her childhood, her memories, her family, all gone. Her hand lingered on the doorknob. Her mind screamed one final plea. What if they change their mind? What if they call out to stop me? But nothing came, just the cold. She stepped into the rain. It greeted her like an old friend, sharp, honest, unforgiving. The storm had worsened. Wind tugged at her coat. Water blurred the mansion lights behind her. Her tears mixed with the rain, and for once, she didn't care. She stood on the front steps, soaked to her soul, and made a decision: I will never knock on this door again. Not for approval, not for help, not even for forgiveness. Because now she knew the door she had always longed to be welcomed through had never truly been open to her. The house was quiet when Vanessa stepped inside, too quiet. No party music, no champagne, just the sound of the kitchen clock ticking like a countdown. She dropped her purse. The rejection letter slipped from between her fingers, fluttering to the floor like a white flag of surrender. Denied. Again. She slid down the cabinet until her knees hit cold tile. The kitchen lights flickered once, as if the house itself was exhausted too. Mark entered moments later. His footsteps were heavy, slower than usual. He didn't speak. He just knelt beside her, holding something in his hand, a folded check. $8,000, he said quietly. Johnson bought the Mustang. Vanessa froze. You're 6'7". You spent 3 summers rebuilding that car. He nodded. His eyes didn't meet hers. Yeah, but I love Zoey more. She took the check with trembling hands, added it to the small pile on the counter, their life savings, maxed out credit cards, early withdrawal from his 401k, still $23,000 short. Her strength cracked. She dropped her forehead against the kitchen floor, cool tile against hot skin, tears soaked into the grout. It's not enough, she whispered. It's never enough. Mark placed a hand on her back, his voice gentle but firm. Then we keep going, whatever it takes. We don't stop here. But Vanessa didn't answer, not yet. In that moment, she prayed, not to a God she understood, but to something, anything, for a miracle, just one. The doorbell rang at 6:13 a.m. Vanessa had been lying awake on the couch, her body too exhausted to sleep, her mind too wired to rest. She thought it might be a nurse. Or another denial letter. What she didn't expect was to open the door and see Tom and Denise standing on her porch. Tom's flannel jacket was zipped to his chin, his Carhartt cap pulled low. Denise held a leather purse in both hands, the kind that had seen decades of use but was stitched with care. "Tom," Vanessa croaked. "Denise, it's so early." Tom gave a small nod. His voice was rough from the cold and emotion. We heard about Zoey. Called Mark 3 times. Mark, now behind her, rubbed his face. Phone died. Denise stepped forward and gently reached for Vanessa's hand. How is our grandbaby? Vanessa almost broke again, but this time it wasn't from pain, it was from relief. She's stable, for now. Tom looked down at the porch floor, then back up. We sold the cabin. Silence. Vanessa blinked. The one in Montana? The one you built? Tom nodded. Got a fair price. Not great, but enough. Denise opened her purse, pulled out an envelope, thick, unassuming, and handed it over. $38,000. Take it. Use it. Don't argue. Vanessa didn't move. She couldn't. It was like time paused in that doorway. She opened the envelope slowly. Her fingers trembled. And when she saw the number, she started to cry. Mark walked over, voice breaking. You can't just give us your retirement. But Tom was already shaking his head. Retirement means nothing if we lose her. Denise smiled through her tears. This is what family does, honey. There were no speeches, no guilt, no you owe us hanging in the air. Just an envelope, thick, warm from Denise's hands, placed gently on the kitchen table. Vanessa stared at it for a moment, afraid to touch it, as if it might vanish. But it didn't. It stayed, solid, real, just like Tom and Denise. Use it for her, Denise said. That's all we want. Vanessa reached for the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she opened it again, not because she doubted the amount, but because she couldn't believe someone would give so much without asking for anything in return. She clutched it to her chest and whispered the only words that mattered, "Thank you." Tom simply nodded and said, "Get her to the hospital. We'll drive behind you. No dramatics, no spotlight, just action." Hours later, the hospital lights glared down the corridor as they wheeled Zoey towards surgery. She clutched her stuffed rabbit, the one she slept with since she was 3. Mark kissed her forehead. Vanessa held her tiny hand until the last possible second. Dr. Levine looked at them both, calm, steady. We're ready. The doors closed. Vanessa stood frozen, arms wrapped around herself. Denise appeared behind her, gently placing a thermos of soup on the chair beside her. Tom sat in the corner, wordless, eyes locked on the clock. Mark reached for her hand. She's going to be okay. Vanessa nodded, but her chest tightened anyway, because this was it. No more maybes, no more next time. It all came down to this moment, this room, these people. And strangely, she didn't feel alone. The hospital room was quiet. Too quiet. Machines beeped steadily, the only soundtrack to Vanessa's life now. Zoey slept, a thin oxygen tube under her nose, the color slowly returning to her cheeks. But even with that small miracle, Vanessa couldn't breathe easy, because outside that hospital room, the world was still falling apart. Her laptop sat open on the windowsill. Emails blinked unread. Invoices past due. Client reminders piling up like unopened mail in an abandoned house. She clicked on her project dashboard. The app glitched again. She sighed, dragging her fingers through her tangled hair. Her interior design firm, the business she built from nothing, was crumbling quietly while her daughter healed. Clients were understanding, for now. But time was running out. The hospital bills were just the beginning. $1,800 for Zoey's ICU bed per night. $230 for every hour of oxygen support. $5,000 for just entering the surgical room. And that was before the real charges came in. Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out 3 credit cards. All of them were maxed. The 4th one declined last night when she tried to buy diapers and a cup of coffee. "We appreciate your patience," the billing department had said earlier that day, "but we'll need a secondary payment method moving forward." She didn't cry. Not anymore. Tears were for people with time. Vanessa sat beside Zoey's bed, opened a blank notepad, and began sketching. Not because she had a project due, but because it was the only thing that kept her hands from shaking. She sketched a window seat with storage underneath for a child's room. She added a sunbeam, a book resting nearby, a hint of pink wallpaper in the background. It had nothing to do with work, and everything to do with hope. Mark entered with soup from home and a kiss for Zoey's forehead. He looked at Vanessa, then the sketchbook, then the wall of bills taped beside her laptop. "We're running on ashes," he said gently. Vanessa didn't look up. "Then I'll build from ashes." There are some debts you can never repay with money, but you try, with heart, with time, with intention. That's what Vanessa did. When Zoey was finally home, still fragile, still healing, Vanessa knew she had to say thank you. Not with flowers, not with words, but with what she knew best, design. Tom and Denise had sold their Montana cabin, the one they dreamed of retiring in, fishing by the lake, waking to silence and pine trees. It wasn't just a building. It was 20 years of dreams poured into timber and nails. So, when they moved into a smaller place on the outskirts of town, Vanessa followed them with her sketchbook. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait for the right time. She just showed up one afternoon with fabric swatches, measuring tape, and that spark in her eyes that had long been buried under exhaustion. "I can't give back what you sold," she told them, "but I can build something that feels like it." And she did. She designed a living room with a fireplace framed in repurposed barnwood, warm, imperfect, and honest. She carved out a corner reading nook for Denise, complete with a wall-mounted lamp and a built-in shelf for her cookbooks. For Tom, she built a wide window seat, angled perfectly for birdwatching, with hidden drawers underneath for his tackle box and journals. The kitchen had a butcher block island, just the right height for making pies. The back porch, reinforced to hold a 2-person rocking bench Tom once salvaged from a junkyard. When it was finished, Tom stood silently in the doorway, hand on the frame, eyes glassy. Denise didn't speak. She just hugged Vanessa tight. And that cabin, that humble little house, became something more. It became the soul of Vanessa's portfolio. When she finally uploaded the photos to her website, clients noticed. It wasn't the flashiest work, but it was real. It told a story of love, sacrifice, and second chances. And that was what made people stop scrolling. The numbers were impossible to ignore. $1.8 million, 7 boutique hotels, complete redesign. It was the kind of contract that could change everything. Vanessa had reviewed the proposal 100 times. She'd rehearsed her pitch in the mirror, in the hospital cafeteria, in her sleep. But nothing could prepare her for the moment those elevator doors opened and she stepped into the boardroom. No team, no fancy suits, no agency name on the slide deck. Just her. One woman with a vision, a laptop, and a worn-out portfolio, bookmarked with photos of a humble little cabin filled with soul. The conference room at Westbrook Hotels gleamed with chrome and silence. 5 executives sat around the long glass table, expressionless, sipping black coffee from branded mugs. Vanessa's palms were damp. Her heart pounded like a war drum. "Miss Winters," the CEO said flatly, "you're considerably smaller than the other firms we're considering." Vanessa smiled, not politely, but calmly. "Yes, right now it's just me, but that's going to change." A pause, a challenge. She plugged in her laptop and began the presentation, not with numbers, not with market trends, but with a story. "Hotels aren't just buildings," she began. "They're where people land after heartbreaks or start honeymoons. They're where kids run barefoot across lobbies and widows fall asleep alone for the first time." She clicked to the next slide, photos of Tom and Denise's new cabin. "This was my in-laws' new home. After they sold their retirement dream to save my daughter's life, I rebuilt them something that felt like home again." She pointed to details: the tackle box drawer, the reading nook, the pie-height kitchen island. The room was still. One executive stopped checking their phone. Another leaned forward. Vanessa exhaled, then ended with this: "I don't just design spaces. I restore what people thought they'd lost." The CEO tapped his pen. "And why do you deserve this contract, Miss Winters?" Her answer was simple, soft, but unshakable. "Because I remember what it feels like to have nothing, and I know exactly how to build something that matters." It had been 5 days since Zoe's surgery. 5 days of sterile hallways, hourly nurse updates, and Vanessa sleeping in a plastic chair beside the hospital bed. The worst was over, but the weight hadn't lifted. She checked her phone in the hospital cafeteria just for a moment, and there it was, a text from Blake. "Mom wants to know if Zoey survived. Also, you kind of embarrassed her at the engagement party." Vanessa stared at the screen. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just blinked. That was it. No visit. No flowers. No apology. Just a text squeezed in between a gym selfie and a dinner reservation post. She didn't reply. Minutes later, a voicemail notification popped up. "Gerald." She hit play. "Vanessa, I'm disappointed in how you handled yourself. The engagement was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, you brought drama. That reflects poorly on this family. You should have waited for a more appropriate time." Her stomach twisted. Not once had they come to the hospital. Not when Zoey was wheeled into surgery. Not when she struggled to wake up. Not even when the doctor said she's going to make it. They hadn't even asked to see her. They just wanted the mess to go away. Vanessa looked around. Mark was asleep next to Zoey, holding her tiny hand. Denise was folding Zoey's clothes by the window. Tom was fixing a broken chair in the hallway with duct tape and quiet purpose. This was family. Not the ones who sent voicemails, the ones who showed up. It arrived in a thick ivory envelope, sealed with a gold stamp that shimmered like it had something important to say. Vanessa didn't open it right away. It sat untouched on the counter for 2 days, nestled between overdue hospital bills and unopened credit card statements. She finally peeled it open on a quiet Thursday morning, Zoey asleep on the couch wrapped in a quilt. Inside was a card. Thick, fancy, heavy like it carried more weight than it should. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Blake and Caitlin." Vanessa's eyes stopped halfway down the card. Her name was there, printed in cursive, almost as if it were granted a spot. But not Zoey's, not Mark's, just her. No +1, no mention of her daughter, no sign that her real family, the one who stayed up all night in the ER, was welcome. She flipped the card over. Nothing. It wasn't an invitation. It was a reminder, a cruel little note dressed in luxury. "You're still not really one of us." Vanessa stared at the gold embossing, and slowly, calmly, she walked over to the trash can and dropped it in without a word. She didn't need their ballroom. She had something they'd never understand. A daughter who knew she was loved, a home filled with truth, and a heart that had stopped asking for a seat at someone else's table. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. The kind of quiet day where sunlight drips through the window and the world feels soft. Zoey was sitting on the living room carpet, building a crooked Lego castle with Tom. Denise was in the kitchen, humming as she stirred soup. Vanessa stood at the doorway, sipping tea, just watching. Then Zoey looked up, beamed, and said it. "Grandpa, can we build a tower next?" Tom froze for half a second. His hands trembled just slightly. Then he smiled wide and full. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's build the tallest one yet." He didn't correct her. He didn't ask her to say Mr. Tom, and no one in the room needed to. Vanessa blinked back tears. That single word, Grandpa, it wasn't just a title. It was a crown, one her own father had never earned. Not by blood, not by birthday gifts, not by money in trust funds or stamps on invitations. But Tom had earned it, with quiet drives to the hospital, with peanut butter sandwiches in paper bags, with hands that held steady through storms. Zoey didn't choose the richest man. She chose the one who stayed. And in that moment, Vanessa didn't feel bitter. She didn't feel angry. She just felt free. 3 years. That's how long it had been since Vanessa last heard their voices. Monica's polished coldness, Gerald's dry sarcasm. 3 years since she walked out into the storm with nothing but a daughter's heartbeat and a mother's promise in her hands. Now her name was etched on the glass doors of a downtown skyscraper. Vanessa Hayes Design & Co., luxury interiors, national acclaim, magazine covers, all built from broken pieces and sleepless nights. That afternoon, her assistant buzzed the intercom. There's a couple here, older. Say they're your parents. Should I send them up?" Vanessa paused mid-email. She hadn't thought of them in months, but there they were, standing in her office doorway 30 minutes later, Gerald in a faded blazer, Monica gripping a scuffed Louis Vuitton suitcase like it was the last thing she owned. They looked smaller, not just older, defeated. Monica's heels had scratches. Gerald's voice shook when he spoke. "Vanessa, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't urgent. We've fallen on some hard times. The business folded, the bank took the house. We have nowhere left," Monica whispered. "We thought—" Vanessa didn't flinch. She just looked down at the table in front of her, where Zoe's drawing sat framed next to a photo of Tom and Denise. Then she stood up, calm, tall, and walked toward the window. Behind her, silence. She didn't scream. She didn't ask them why they never visited Zoey. She simply said, 3 years ago, I knocked on your door with nothing but hope. You gave me a storm." She turned around slowly. "Now you're knocking on mine with nothing but a suitcase. That's not karma. That's memory." Vanessa didn't raise her voice. She didn't curse, didn't cry, didn't ask them why now. Instead, she reached into her drawer and pulled out her phone, the old one. Cracked screen, still working. She tapped the screen once, scrolled, paused, then pressed play. "Your financial mistakes are not our responsibility." Gerald's voice filled the room, polished, condescending. "Recorded 3 years ago, just hours after Zoe's surgery. You embarrass the family name, barging into the party like that. Your daughter's condition is unfortunate, but Blake's future comes first." Silence. In the present, Gerald's face collapsed. Monica's eyes widened, but she said nothing. Vanessa set the phone down on the table between them. "You said my child wasn't your responsibility. Today, neither are you." She didn't yell. She didn't need to. Some knives don't cut with volume. They cut with memory. And in that moment, it wasn't revenge she tasted. It was closure. Vanessa stood calm as glass. She walked to the cabinet behind her desk, opened a drawer she hadn't touched in years. Inside, a plain black suitcase. She set it on the table, unzipped it, and slowly turned it around, pushing it toward Gerald and Monica. Inside were neat stacks of bills, counted down to the cent. $14,873.42. The exact amount they had said they needed. No more, no less. "This isn't a gift," she said quietly. "It's closure." Gerald blinked. Monica looked confused. "I'm giving you what you once refused to give me. A way to survive." She stepped back, folded her hands. "Take it, and leave." A long pause. Then she added, "From now on, I'm no longer your daughter." Monica opened her mouth, but no words came. Gerald reached for the suitcase with shaking hands. Vanessa watched not with hatred, not with spite, but with relief. "This isn't forgiveness," she said one last time. "It's freedom." And in that moment, the air shifted. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet and final. No marble floors, no chandeliers, no $250,000 floral arrangements, just a squeaky screen door, a grill that smokes too much, and a 6-year-old in a pink apron flipping burgers with all her might. Zoey laughed as Grandpa Tom showed her how to press the spatula just right. Not too hard, sweet pea, or it's hockey puck for dinner. She giggled, then did it perfectly. Inside, Denise was slicing up her famous peach pie, humming along to an old song on the radio. No tension, no masks, no pretending, just life. Messy, real, glorious. Vanessa sat on the porch watching them, sunlight catching the strands in her hair, warmth blooming across her chest. There was no designer furniture here, no business calls, just family. Not the kind that shares DNA, but the kind that chooses to stay. That day, no one talked about the past. No one brought up weddings or voicemails or suitcases. Because joy doesn't need reminders, it only needs presence. And in that small backyard with the smell of grilled onions and peach pie in the air, Vanessa realized this wasn't the life she dreamed of. It was better. It was a quiet night. Zoey had just brushed her teeth, still wearing her unicorn pajamas. She curled into Vanessa's lap on the couch, a half-read bedtime story resting on the armrest. Then she asked it, soft, curious. No bitterness in her voice, just a child's honest confusion. "Mom, why do I only have one set of grandparents?" Vanessa froze for a second. Her fingers stopped running through Zoey's curls. She took a deep breath. She didn't lie. She didn't deflect. She looked her daughter in the eyes and said, "Because sometimes family isn't the people you're born to. It's the ones who choose to love you." Zoey tilted her head. "So Grandma Denise and Grandpa Tom chose me?" Vanessa smiled. "They did, baby, 100 times over." Zoey sat for a moment, then nodded. "Then that's even better." Vanessa held her close, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "It really is." Outside, the porch light flickered. Inside, 2 hearts beat as one. And the past stayed outside the door. Vanessa never wanted to be famous. She just wanted to survive. But after the hotel contract, word spread fast. Her designs were bold, but it was her values that made headlines. In every interview, she told the same story. "I was a broke single mom. No one helped me until someone did." So she made a promise, not to the press, not to investors, but to herself. "No one who works with me will ever feel that alone again." And she meant it. She hired single moms, single dads, people who'd been overlooked. At her company, healthcare didn't start after 90 days. It started on day 1. Sick kid? You got time off. No guilt, no penalty, just support. But she didn't stop there. She created a fund, quietly, privately, to pay for emergency heart surgeries for kids like Zoey. No one knew, not even her staff, until one day a woman showed up at the office crying. Her son had made it through surgery because of some anonymous donor. That was Vanessa's favorite kind of fame, the kind no one could post about, the kind no one could take away. She wasn't just building a business, she was building a life no one could touch because it was built on love. The cover hit newsstands on a Tuesday. There she was, Vanessa Taylor, hair swept back, minimal makeup, eyes fierce but warm. The headline read, "Redesigning Success: How a Single Mom Built an Empire Rooted in Grace." But it was the pull quote that made the world pause. Printed in bold across the bottom, "My parents let my daughter suffer for a party." That's when I realized blood doesn't define family. Within 24 hours, the quote had gone viral, shared on Twitter, posted on billboards, turned into tattoos. People didn't just admire her, they felt seen by her. Single moms tagged their stories, "I am the blood that chose love." Fathers, aunts, friends, neighbors, people who had become family, not inherited it, shared that quote like gospel. And Vanessa, she sat in her office watching the world react. But she didn't smile for the fame. She smiled for Zoey, who now had a world that understood her mother's fight. It wasn't just a magazine cover. It was a mirror for millions. Karma didn't knock. It let itself in quietly. Blake's perfect life cracked, then collapsed. First, the promotion at his father's company, gone. Turns out the board had seen the magazine cover too. His name was now associated with scandal, with heartlessness. His colleagues whispered behind his back, "Isn't he the guy whose niece almost died while his family threw a party?" Then came the divorce papers. His wife had read every word of Vanessa's interview. She looked at the man beside her and saw someone she didn't respect anymore. She packed up her things and her dignity. A month later, the family business, the one Gerald built on vanity and veneers, collapsed under the weight of unpaid loans and ruined reputation. And the mansion, foreclosed, sold at auction, its marble floors now walked by strangers. Gerald and Monica didn't just lose money, they lost legacy. They lost the illusion of power. And through it all, Vanessa stayed silent. She didn't cheer, she didn't gloat, because she knew the kind of justice that lasts is the kind that doesn't need to scream. Her phone buzzed just past midnight. One missed call, one voicemail, from Gerald. She hesitated, then pressed play. The voice was older now, not arrogant, not polished, just tired. "Vanessa, please, we have nowhere else to turn." A pause. "I know we failed you. I know we failed her." The voice cracked. A silence stretched too long. Then, "Please call us back." Vanessa sat there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. She remembered the night Zoey almost died, the slammed door, the rain on her coat. She remembered the silence from Monica, the shrug from Gerald, the champagne that flowed as her world collapsed. She took a breath, not from hate, not from revenge, but from peace. Then she pressed delete. No tears, no last words, just freedom. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when your world is falling apart. Vanessa's story teaches us that the people who walk away when you're desperate are not the ones meant to walk beside you when you rise. True family shows up, sacrifices, and chooses love without conditions. Sometimes letting go isn't cruel, it's courageous. And the most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so whole, so strong, that they can never touch it. If you've ever been left behind, if you've ever had to fight alone, Vanessa's journey is also your voice. Subscribe to our channel to hear more real stories that inspire, heal, and remind you you're not alone. Share your story in the comments, because someone out there needs to know they're not invisible either. Belle, hit that subscribe button now and be part of a family that chooses love over blood.